The Lakers are already having trouble with the starting lineup. Stay until the end, but leave your like and subscribe to the channel. News credit to Lakers Brazil. When the Los Angeles Lakers secured Marcus Smart in the offseason, excitement and uncertainty arrived in equal measure. Smart is known across the league as a defensive anchor, a fiery competitor who thrives in chaotic moments. His arrival, however, has triggered a complicated question that the coaching staff, led by Redick, cannot ignore. What happens to Austin Reaves? Reaves, the undrafted guard who rose to prominence through hard work and consistency, has become more than just a role player. In fact, last season he established himself as one of the Lakers' most dependable starters, putting up scoring numbers that matched those of established stars while also acting as a reliable secondary playmaker. His growth has been so remarkable that removing him from the starting five could be seen as a step backward both for his career and for the franchise's long-term stability. Yet Smart's strengths cannot be denied. His defensive instincts, toughness, and ability to guard multiple positions address some of the Lakers' biggest weaknesses. With LeBron James nearing 40 and no longer able to carry a heavy defensive load every night, and Luka Dončić now sharing the spotlight in purple and gold, often conserving energy for offense, Smart provides the intensity and grit that the team desperately needs on the perimeter. On paper, he fills a gap that has existed for years. This duality creates a classic coaching dilemma. Should Redick prioritize defensive balance and insert Smart into the starting lineup? Or should he preserve the chemistry and offensive flow that Reaves brings as a starter? Either choice risks sending the wrong message to a key player. For Reaves, losing his starting role would not just bruise his ego, it could influence his career decisions. He holds a player option for the 2026-27 season, and many insiders already expect him to decline it in order to pursue a richer contract. If his role is diminished now, his willingness to stay loyal to Los Angeles could fade quickly. The situation is further complicated by the perception of both players. Smart arrives with a reputation forged in Boston, where he became Defensive Player of the Year and a respected leader. Fans admire his toughness, but they also recognize his recent history of injuries and inconsistent offensive production. On the other hand, Reaves is homegrown in a sense, developed within the Lakers' system since 2021. His rise has been embraced by the fan base, making him one of the most popular figures in the locker room. Benching him could alienate both the player and the supporters who view him as the heart of the team's future. Analysts across the league are divided. Some argue that Smart's presence is non-negotiable if the Lakers want to challenge elite Western Conference opponents with high-powered offenses. Others believe that his value is maximized when he comes off the bench, where he can stabilize the second unit, apply defensive pressure, and still share crucial minutes alongside James and Dončić in closing stretches. That compromise would maintain Reaves's confidence while also utilizing Smart's skill set. But there is no avoiding the human element. For Reaves, being a starter is not just a matter of pride, it symbolizes the trust the organization has placed in him. Last season, he started 73 games and averaged over 20 points, nearly 6 assists, and close to 5 rebounds, with efficient shooting from deep. To reduce that role now would be a harsh contradiction of the progress he's made. For Smart, meanwhile, not starting could be perceived as a lack of faith in his impact, even though his resume proves otherwise. Redick, in his first major test as Lakers head coach, must weigh the short-term benefits against the long-term vision. Does he lean on Smart's defensive edge immediately, or does he preserve Reaves's role to protect the future harmony of the franchise? The answer is far from obvious, and whichever direction he chooses will shape not only the rotations on the floor, but also the trust within the locker room. What makes this scenario even more fascinating is that both players want the same thing: to win. Smart has proven he will sacrifice statistics for victories, and Reaves has shown a willingness to adapt his game to fit alongside stars. The question, is whether the Lakers' leadership can design a system where neither feels marginalized. As training camp approaches, the conversation around this roster dilemma will only intensify. Fans will speculate, media will debate, and Reaves himself will be quietly assessing his future in Los Angeles. The Lakers are at a crossroads, balancing present ambitions with long-term commitments. Chapter 1 of this unfolding story reveals one truth. Sometimes the biggest battles in basketball are not fought on the court, but in the decisions that shape who steps onto it first. In the NBA, the title of starter carries far more weight than just a ceremonial lineup introduction. It represents status, trust, and a clear affirmation of a player's role in the grand design of a team. For Austin Reaves, that distinction has defined the trajectory of his young career. For Marcus Smart, it has been a badge of honor earned through years of defensive sacrifice and competitive fire. Now, with both men vying for the same position in Los Angeles, the symbolism of starting becomes a central theme in J.J. Redick's puzzle. Reaves' breakout season was not an accident. Given full starter responsibilities, he thrived in the rhythm of consistent minutes and high expectations. The numbers spoke loudly: over 20 points per game, efficient three-point shooting, steady playmaking, and a knack for rising to the occasion in crunch time. More importantly, he showed that he could complement the Lakers' stars without overshadowing them, offering a balance of aggression and humility that resonated with both teammates and fans. Stripping him of that starting label could feel like undoing years of earned credibility. For Smart, the argument is just as compelling. Across his time in Boston and briefly in Washington, he proved that his defensive tenacity can alter the outcome of entire playoff series. Coaches across the league rave about his ability to communicate, rotate, and neutralize elite scorers. His starting role has historically been non-negotiable because his leadership extends beyond statistics. He embodies energy at tip-off, setting a tone of urgency from the very first possession. To relegate him to the bench would be to challenge the very identity he has built throughout his career. But not all minutes are created equal. A starter may begin the game, but a closer ends it. Some analysts argue that Redick could soften the blow by assuring both players that rotations will reflect their importance. Reaves might keep his starting spot, while Smart could still play pivotal stretches in the second half, ensuring his defensive presence in the moments that matter most. In this view, who starts is symbolic, but who finishes is decisive. Yet for many players, symbolism is inseparable from reality. Confidence often hinges on feeling trusted from the opening whistle. The dynamics of NBA locker rooms add another layer of complexity. Veterans like LeBron James know the psychological importance of role clarity. Confusion breeds tension, and tension disrupts chemistry. If Reaves feels slighted, his energy could wane. If Smart feels undervalued, his fiery competitiveness could turn into frustration. Either scenario risks creating small fractures that, over time, could widen into organizational headaches. Money and contracts also loom large. The free agency cycle rewards starters differently than bench contributors. Reaves is approaching a pivotal point in his career, with a player option in 2026 that he is almost certain to decline in search of a long-term deal. His negotiating power is directly tied to his role. If his numbers dip due to reduced opportunities, it could cost him millions. For Smart, who already secured a lucrative contract in recent years, the issue is less about financial future and more about professional pride. Still, perception matters, and coming off the bench after years of starting could dent the way the league values him. Fans and media only magnify the issue. Lakers supporters have embraced Reaves as a symbol of hard work and loyalty, a player who rose from undrafted obscurity to starring in one of the NBA's most iconic franchises. Benching him would be a controversial move that could alienate the fan base. Smart, meanwhile, is respected league-wide, but is still a newcomer in Los Angeles. It takes time to win over a crowd that has already chosen its favorites. Redick, in his rookie season as head coach, risks walking into a storm no matter which direction he chooses. The irony is that the Lakers' long-term outlook depends on both players thriving. Reaves represents continuity and future growth, while Smart brings the toughness and short-term edge required to survive deep playoff runs. They are not adversaries but potential complements, if managed correctly. The real challenge lies in Redick's ability to frame roles in a way that avoids one being perceived as a demotion. That may involve staggering minutes, experimenting with situational lineups, or even rethinking traditional notions of what a starter truly means. What remains undeniable is the psychological impact of starting status. In a league where ego and identity play as big a role as physical skill, the decision carries ripple effects far beyond a box score. For Reaves, it could alter the course of his career in Los Angeles. For Smart, it could reshape his reputation in a new city. For Redick, it could define the tone of his coaching tenure before it even begins. The Lakers are not simply choosing who gets the first 5 minutes of each game. They are choosing whose story they are prioritizing, whose confidence they are protecting, and whose future they are aligning with the franchise. The stakes are not just tactical, they are emotional, financial, and cultural. And as history has shown, those factors can make or break a season before the ball ever tips. Basketball is often reduced to points, rebounds, and assists. Yet championships are usually won on the less glamorous side of the ball, defense. For decades, the Lakers have built their legacy on imposing defenders, whether it was Kareem protecting the rim, Kobe Bryant smothering guards, or Anthony Davis patrolling the paint. The acquisition of Marcus Smart fits squarely into that tradition. His presence forces Los Angeles to confront a simple but weighty question. How much should defense dictate the starting lineup? On paper, Smart fills a glaring void. Luka Dončić, despite his brilliance as an offensive orchestrator, is often targeted by opposing coaches who scheme to exploit his defensive lapses. LeBron James, approaching his 40th birthday, has shown flashes of defensive intensity but no longer sustains it for 82 games. Even Anthony Davis, elite as he is, cannot cover every breakdown on the perimeter. Smart provides the antidote. A relentless defender who communicates, rotates, and takes personal pride in shutting down elite scorers. If Redick builds the starting lineup around defensive priorities, Smart becomes an almost automatic inclusion. His track record, Defensive Player of the Year, countless playoff battles, and the reputation of being one of the league's most versatile stoppers, demands respect. Insert him into the opening 5, and suddenly the Lakers' defensive identity sharpens. Opponents would have to fight for every possession, knowing Smart will pressure the ball handler, switch onto wings, and set the tone of physicality. But the defensive equation is not as simple as plugging one player into the system. Removing Reaves from the starting unit creates its own ripple effects. Reaves is not a lockdown defender, but he is not a liability either. He competes, rotates, and uses his size effectively against guards and smaller forwards. What he lacks in raw athleticism, he compensates with anticipation and effort. Offensively, however, his value skyrockets compared to Smart. Reaves spaces the floor with reliable shooting, creates secondary offense when LeBron or Dončić rests, and thrives in catch-and-shoot situations. Taking him out of the lineup may improve defense, but it risks disrupting offensive flow. This is where Redick faces his coaching paradox. Defense might win championships, but offense generates rhythm and confidence. If Smart starts and Reaves is benched, the Lakers may protect themselves against fast-scoring opponents, but also risk stalling their own spacing and ball movement. Conversely, if Reaves remains a starter, the Lakers' offense flows smoothly, but they may be exposed defensively in high-stakes playoff matchups. One potential solution is fluidity. Rather than locking into a rigid lineup, Redick could adopt a matchup-based philosophy. Against elite offensive backcourts, say the Warriors or the Suns, Smart could start to neutralize threats early. Against slower-paced or defensively vulnerable teams, Reaves could retain his starting spot to maximize offensive punch. Such flexibility, however, comes at a cost. Players crave consistency. Rotating roles too frequently can leave both men feeling unsettled, never sure where they stand. There is also the matter of longevity. Smart has struggled to stay healthy across recent seasons, rarely completing a full campaign without significant injuries. Banking on him as a full-time starter risks overloading him before the postseason, when his defensive grit is most valuable. Reaves, by contrast, has proven durable and adaptable, logging heavy minutes across 73 starts last season. From a health management perspective, it may make more sense to preserve Smart for selective bursts rather than demanding starter-level wear and tear. Then comes the locker room chemistry. Defense is as much about trust as it is about talent. Smart is vocal, sometimes confrontational, in his leadership style. He thrives by holding teammates accountable, which can galvanize a group but also irritate individuals unaccustomed to his intensity. Reaves is quieter, more reserved, a connector rather than an enforcer. Their defensive approaches mirror their personalities. One commands, the other blends. Redick must determine which tone he wants to set from the opening tip. History provides cautionary tales. Teams that prioritize defense at the expense of offense often struggled to maintain balance. Conversely, squads overloaded with shooters and scorers but lacking defensive anchors were exposed under playoff pressure. The rare champions, think of the 2014 Spurs or the 20-20 Lakers, struck a delicate balance, blending offensive precision with defensive resilience. Redick, in his debut season, is being asked to master that balance from day one. Ultimately, the defensive equation boils down to priorities. If the Lakers' goal is to dominate regular season opponents and secure a high playoff seed, consistency and offensive flow might outweigh situational defense. But if the target is a championship run, measured by how well they withstand 7-game series against elite scorers, then Smart's defensive presence cannot be ignored. For now, Redick holds the chalkboard, weighing each variable like a mathematician, balancing an impossible formula. Defense versus offense, reliability versus risk, long-term development versus immediate needs. The solution is not obvious, and perhaps that is the essence of the Lakers' dilemma. There may be no perfect answer, only trade-offs. When the Los Angeles Lakers announced J.J. Redick as their new head coach, the basketball world raised its collective eyebrow. A former sharpshooter with no prior coaching experience, Redick moved straight from broadcasting into one of the NBA's most pressurized positions. Few jobs in sports carry as much scrutiny as guiding the Lakers. Every substitution, every rotation, every post-game comment will be magnified under the Hollywood spotlight. And before Redick has even coached a game, he faces his first defining test, choosing between Marcus Smart and Austin Reaves. This decision is not merely tactical, it is symbolic. Coaches are judged early on by how they handle their stars, how they integrate new acquisitions, and how they manage team politics. For Redick, the Smart versus Reaves dilemma encapsulates all of those pressures at once. His choice will reveal not only his basketball philosophy but also his leadership style. Will he be rigid and principle-driven or flexible and adaptive? Will he prioritize immediate defense or safeguard long-term chemistry? Redick's background provides both advantages and risks. As a player, he was known for preparation, intelligence, and adaptability. He spent years studying film, refining his shot, and adjusting to different roles on playoff teams. His analytical mind, on display during his podcast and broadcasting career, suggests he will approach decisions logically and communicate them clearly, but translating theory into practice is never easy. NBA locker rooms are filled with egos, emotions, and unspoken hierarchies that no podcast can fully prepare a coach for. The Smart Reaves question is particularly delicate because it touches every layer of the team. From a basketball standpoint, it's about balancing defense and offense. From a cultural standpoint, it's about choosing between a beloved homegrown talent and a battle-tested newcomer. From a leadership standpoint, it's about how Redick asserts authority in his very first season. If he mishandles it, he risks losing the trust of his players before the campaign even begins. Some coaches in his position might lean heavily on veterans like LeBron James or Anthony Davis for guidance. Redick, who shares a history of mutual respect with James, may consult him about the direction of the lineup, but relying too much on players to shape decisions can undermine authority. Redick must walk the fine line between collaboration and independence, listening to his stars while ultimately owning the choices himself. The way he frames his decision to Smart and Reaves could matter as much as the decision itself. Communication will be key. If Redick benches Reaves without context, he risks alienating a player who has poured everything into the franchise since 2021. If he benches Smart, he risks making the defensive specialist feel undervalued in his first season in Los Angeles. The challenge lies in articulating a vision where both roles feel essential, regardless of starting status. Successful coaches are often great storytellers, able to convince players that their contributions fit into a larger purpose. Redick must craft that narrative convincingly. There is also the matter of optics. The media in Los Angeles thrives on drama, and this decision provides plenty of fuel. Headlines will speculate about locker room discontent, trade rumors, or long-term tensions. Redick's rookie year could quickly spiral into a circus if the storyline becomes coach benches fan favorite or newcomer overshadowed by incumbent. The Lakers' history is filled with such narratives, and Redick cannot afford to be swallowed by them. His handling of press conferences, his tone, and even his body language will shape how this saga is perceived outside the locker room. For a first-year coach, the learning curve is steep. Mistakes are inevitable. But Redick's greatest asset may be his fresh perspective. Unburdened by coaching habits, he has the chance to innovate. He could redefine what it means to start by rotating lineups more aggressively than traditional coaches. He could challenge players to embrace versatility, turning the Smart Reaves debate into a strength rather than a weakness. His credibility as a former player might also help bridge the gap. He understands the pride attached to starting roles because he once lived it himself. Ultimately, Redick's test is about more than basketball strategy. It's about leadership under pressure. The Lakers are not a franchise that tolerates patience. They demand results immediately. Balancing that urgency with long-term vision is an art form, one that Redick will be forced to learn in real time. How he handles the Smart Reaves conundrum may set the tone for how he is perceived not only by his players, but by the entire organization and fan base. In many ways, this is the essence of coaching at the highest level. The game itself is complex, but the human dynamics are even more so. Redick is stepping into a storm of expectations, history, and personalities. The Smart Reaves dilemma is not the last challenge he will face, but it may be the one that defines his beginning. Every great franchise has players who embody its spirit beyond raw statistics. For the Lakers, Austin Reaves has quietly stepped into that role. Undrafted, overlooked, and underestimated, he carved his path not through hype, but through persistence, resilience, and an uncanny ability to rise to the occasion. Over time, he has grown from a curiosity into a cornerstone, and now, just as his career begins to soar, he faces the possibility of being shifted to the bench, a move that could redefine both his future and the team's identity. The Lakers. Fan base has embraced Reaves in a way that few young players experience. His underdog story resonates in Los Angeles, a city known for glamour, but also for rewarding grit. Fans see him as one of their own, a reminder that success isn't only reserved for lottery picks or superstars. His performances in big games, knocking down clutch threes, attacking the basket fearlessly, making the right pass under pressure, cemented his place in the hearts of supporters who chant his name as loudly as they do LeBron's or Davis's. To many, Reaves represents the bridge between the Lakers' storied past and their uncertain future. The numbers underline his value. Starting 73 games last season, he averaged more than 20 points while adding playmaking and rebounding contributions. Those figures aren't just filler. They reflect consistency at a high level, the kind of production that typically secures a player's place in the starting lineup for years to come. More than that, his efficiency from beyond the arc adds spacing, a precious commodity in lineups built around stars who thrive with room to operate. For a roster featuring LeBron and Luka Dončić, shooters like Reaves are essential. And yet, the arrival of Marcus Smart complicates this trajectory. Smart's defensive reputation is unmatched, and his fiery competitiveness is the type of edge any team craves. But his presence forces Reaves into a precarious position. A shift to the bench could signal that despite his growth and production, he remains expendable in the eyes of management. For a young player eyeing his next contract, likely turning down his player option in 2026 to secure a lucrative long-term deal, the symbolism matters. Role translates to opportunity, and opportunity translates to money. For Reaves, the decision is not merely professional, it's personal. Being demoted after a breakout season feels less like a tactical adjustment and more like a contradiction of everything he has earned. Athletes thrive on confidence, and confidence is often reinforced by trust. If the organization signals that Reaves is not trusted to start, how will that affect his mindset? Will he continue to pour himself into the franchise, or will he quietly begin envisioning life elsewhere once free agency arrives? The Lakers' front office is surely aware of this tension. They know how rare it is to cultivate a fan favorite from scratch. Reaves has become a symbol of loyalty, an example of development done right. Moving him to the bench risks alienating not only the player, but also the supporters who see him as the heartbeat of the team's future. History shows that alienating fan favorites rarely ends well. Resentment builds, trade rumors swirl, and locker room morale dips. At the same time, Reaves' character complicates the narrative. He has never been the type to publicly complain or demand recognition. His quiet demeanor and team-first approach are part of why the Lakers value him so highly. But silence does not mean indifference. Like all professionals, he is acutely aware of his role and how it shapes his career trajectory. Even if he accepts a bench role outwardly, the internal calculus of his long-term future will inevitably shift. The broader question becomes, can Reaves continue to grow if his role is reduced? Last season's leap was fueled by consistent minutes and responsibilities. A move to the bench could stunt that momentum, turning him into a situational player rather than a rising star. For the Lakers, who must think about life after LeBron, this is a dangerous gamble. Reaves is one of the few young pieces who can be both a present contributor and a long-term building block. For Redick, navigating this dynamic is a test of communication and vision. He must ensure that Reaves feels valued regardless of starting status. That could mean staggering rotations to maximize his minutes with LeBron and Dončić, or designing offensive sets where Reaves remains a focal point even if he begins the game on the sideline. Above all, Redick must articulate clearly. Reaves is not being demoted, but rather being positioned strategically. Whether that explanation convinces Reaves or the fan base remains to be seen. Ultimately, the weight of expectations surrounding Reaves is heavier than ever. He is no longer the overlooked rookie fighting for minutes. He is the player whose role could shape the Lakers' next chapter. Benching him risks much more than disrupting a lineup. It risks undermining the faith of a young star, the loyalty of a passionate fan base, and the identity of a franchise trying to balance its present ambitions with its future foundation. Every NBA team searches for players who can alter the energy of a game without needing to score 30 points. Marcus Smart has built his career on being exactly that player. From his early years in Boston to his brief stop in Washington, he carved out a reputation as one of the league's fiercest competitors, a defender whose presence changes the psychology of opponents. Now, in Los Angeles, Smart arrives with expectations and questions. Can he be the missing defensive anchor, or will his addition disrupt a fragile balance already in place? Smart's resume speaks volumes. A former Defensive Player of the Year, he has faced and frustrated some of the NBA's best scorers. His impact extends beyond statistics. He dives for loose balls, takes charges, and communicates constantly, orchestrating team defense like a conductor leading an orchestra. Coaches rave about his ability to anticipate plays before they unfold. Teammates praise his willingness to sacrifice his body. Fans, even when frustrated by his streaky shooting, cannot deny the intangibles he brings every night. For the Lakers, those intangibles fill a desperate need. In recent seasons, Los Angeles has struggled with perimeter defense, often relying on Anthony Davis to clean up mistakes at the rim. That formula, while effective at times, wears down Davis and leaves the team vulnerable against guard-heavy opponents. Smart, with his versatility, offers relief. He can guard point guards, switch onto wings, and even hold his ground against bigger forwards in critical possessions. His presence could free Davis to focus on rim protection and allow LeBron James to conserve energy for offensive duties. Yet Smart's strengths are tied to limitations. Offensively, he has never been a consistent scorer. His shooting percentages fluctuate, and his shot selection has often been criticized. On teams that need him to carry a heavy offensive load, those weaknesses become glaring. In Los Angeles, however, Smart will not be asked to lead offensively. That responsibility falls on LeBron, Dončić, and Davis. Instead, his job will be to complement them, providing spacing when possible and playmaking when necessary. If he embraces that secondary role, his offensive inconsistencies may be less of an issue. The larger question revolves around health. In recent years, Smart has struggled to stay on the floor for full seasons, battling nagging injuries that limit his availability. For a team like the Lakers, which is already dependent on older stars, durability is as important as talent. Banking on Smart as a full-time starter carries risk. If he misses significant time, the rotation could be destabilized. This raises the argument that using him as a sixth man might be more sustainable, preserving his energy for playoff intensity rather than draining him across 82 games. Smart's personality also looms large. He is vocal, passionate, and unapologetically intense. That leadership style galvanized Boston, where he became the emotional engine of the team. In Los Angeles, however, he steps into a locker room already, defined by the presence of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and now Luka Dončić. Will his voice blend with theirs or clash? Successful teams often rely on harmony between leaders, and Smart's integration will depend on how his fiery competitiveness meshes with the Lakers' established hierarchy. From a tactical perspective, Smart's role could evolve. He may begin games as a defensive tone setter, forcing opponents into early discomfort. He may also be the closer, trusted to guard elite scorers in final possessions when championships are decided. Redick could even experiment with Smart as a defensive specialist, not concerned with starting status, but with maximizing his minutes in situations where his impact is most valuable. In many ways, Smart's career has prepared him for such flexibility. He has never been about individual accolades, but about team success. The potential upside of Smart's addition is enormous. If healthy and properly utilized, he could elevate the Lakers' defense to championship caliber. He could give LeBron and Dončić the freedom to focus on offense without worrying about constant mismatches. He could allow Davis to anchor the paint without scrambling to cover perimeter breakdowns. In short, Smart could be the connective tissue that holds the team together on the defensive end. But the downside is equally real. If his injuries persist, if his offensive limitations become liabilities, or if his presence disrupts the confidence of players like Reaves, the Lakers could find themselves with more problems than solutions. For a team chasing titles in the final stretch of LeBron's career, such risks are magnified. Marcus Smart has always thrived on proving doubters wrong. Los Angeles presents perhaps his greatest challenge yet, not only to prove his individual worth, but to show that his defensive identity can coexist with the Lakers' offensive stars and developmental priorities. If he succeeds, he could become the heartbeat of a championship run. If he falters, his acquisition may be remembered as a costly gamble. Every decision the Lakers make, from roster construction to minute distribution, ultimately revolves around their stars. In this era, that means two names tower above the rest: LeBron James and Luka Dončić. Their presence is both a blessing and a challenge. On one hand, having two of the most gifted offensive minds in basketball history gives the Lakers an unmatched playmaking advantage. On the other, their defensive limitations and need for support cast long shadows over the rest of the lineup. The Smart-Reaves debate cannot be understood without first examining how LeBron and Dončić shaped the team's identity. LeBron, entering his 22nd season, remains a marvel. Even at nearly 40, he is still capable of controlling games with precision passing, timely scoring, and leadership. But time has altered his approach. Gone are the days when he could single-handedly smother opponents on defense for 40 minutes. He now chooses his moments, conserving energy for when it matters most. This selective engagement is smart, even necessary, but it leaves gaps. For the Lakers to compete, those gaps must be covered, either by Davis in the paint or by perimeter. Defenders like Smart and Reaves, Dončić brings a different dynamic. At just 26, he is in his prime as one of the NBA's most unguardable offensive players. His vision, creativity, and scoring arsenal make him a nightmare for defenses. But his brilliance comes at a cost. His defensive effort is inconsistent, often because he carries such a heavy load offensively. Coaches recognize this and typically surround him with strong defenders to mask those shortcomings. In Dallas, the Mavericks built their roster with this principle in mind. In Los Angeles, Redick faces the same puzzle. How do you maximize Dončić's offensive genius while protecting him on the other end? This is where Smart enters the conversation with force. His defensive presence can compensate for both Dončić's lapses and LeBron's selective engagement. A lineup featuring Smart, LeBron, Dončić, Davis, and a shooter gives Los Angeles a defensive backbone without sacrificing too much offensive firepower. From this perspective, starting Smart makes perfect sense. He does the dirty work that the stars either cannot or should not be doing every possession. But Reaves complicates the equation. Offensively, he complements LeBron and Dončić better than Smart. His ability to space the floor, attack closeouts, and handle secondary playmaking duties reduces the burden on the stars. With Reaves, the Lakers' offense flows more smoothly, minimizing the risk of stagnation when LeBron or Dončić is double-teamed. Defensively, he may not be elite, but he is reliable enough to avoid being a liability. His presence ensures balance without forcing the stars to shoulder every creative responsibility. LeBron's perspective will carry enormous weight. Having played alongside both defensive specialists and offensive role players throughout his career, he understands the value of each. In Miami, he thrived with Shane Battier and Mario Chalmers guarding perimeter scorers. In Cleveland, shooters like J.R. Smith and Kyrie Irving provided spacing and offensive firepower. His voice in Redick's ear will likely emphasize trust and chemistry. Who makes the game easier for him and Dončić to dominate? Dončić's view is equally important. He has grown accustomed to being surrounded by defensive-minded teammates who allow him to save energy for offense. But he also knows the frustration of playing without enough scoring support. If Redick leans too heavily on Smart, Dončić might feel overburdened by the offensive load. If he leans on Reaves, Dončić might face constant defensive targeting. In high-stakes playoff matchups, balancing those realities requires not just strategy, but diplomacy. Another factor is closing lineups. In modern basketball, who finishes games often matters more than who starts them. LeBron and Dončić will always be on the floor in crunch time, alongside Davis. The final two spots could rotate between Smart and Reaves, depending on matchups. If Redick frames the decision this way, he may soften the blow of benching one of them. Both will play alongside the stars when it matters most. Still, the psychological weight of starting cannot be dismissed, especially for Reaves. What makes this scenario fascinating is that both Smart and Reaves were essentially acquired, or retained, for the same reason: to make life easier for the stars. Smart's defense shields them. Reaves' offense amplifies them. Neither exists in a vacuum. Their value is defined by how well they complement LeBron and Dončić. Redick's challenge is to identify which combination maximizes the overall ecosystem. At its core, the Smart-Reaves dilemma is less about them as individuals and more about the two supernovas at the center of the Lakers' universe. The stars define the gravitational pull. Everyone else must orbit accordingly. Whether Smart or Reaves starts may depend less on their own merits and more on how they allow LeBron James and Luka Dončić to shine. And in a league where stars drive championships, that consideration may outweigh every other factor. In Los Angeles, basketball is never confined to the hardwood. Every game, every lineup adjustment, every rumor echoes across sports talk shows, social media feeds, and barbershop debates. The Lakers are not just a basketball team, they are a cultural institution, and with that comes relentless scrutiny. For J.J. Redick, Austin Reaves, and Marcus Smart, this reality means that the starting lineup debate has already spilled far beyond the locker room. It now lives in the court of public opinion. The Lakers fan base is as passionate as it is demanding. Generations of supporters have grown accustomed to greatness, from Magic Johnson's Showtime to Kobe Bryant's relentless drive to LeBron James's modern-era dominance. With banners hanging in the rafters and a global following, expectations are never modest. Role players are not judged solely on their box scores, but on how well they embody the franchise's pursuit of excellence. In this context, the Smart versus Reaves debate is not a minor roster question. It is a referendum on the team's identity. For many fans, Austin Reaves represents something rare in Los Angeles: authenticity. His journey from undrafted prospect to starting guard has created an emotional bond with supporters who see him as proof that hard work still matters in a city often associated with glamour and shortcuts. Benching Reaves would feel to some like a betrayal, not just of the player, but of the narrative they've invested in. He is their underdog hero, and underdogs aren't meant to be sidelined for hired guns. On the other hand, Marcus Smart carries his own aura. To basketball purists, his defensive intensity is exactly what the Lakers have lacked. He is battle-tested, decorated with awards, and widely respected across the league. For fans tired of watching the Lakers struggle against guard-heavy offenses, Smart represents hope for a tougher, grittier identity. His arrival signals that Los Angeles is serious about patching weaknesses, even if it means difficult sacrifices. The media thrives on this tension. Sports networks and podcasts dissect every angle, often framing the situation as a zero-sum battle. Smart versus Reaves, defense versus offense, newcomer versus homegrown talent. Headlines exaggerate divisions, speculating about locker room friction or future trades. In a market like Los Angeles, narratives snowball quickly. A single post-game comment, an offhand remark in practice, or even body language on the bench can ignite firestorms of speculation. Redick, already under a microscope as a rookie coach, will have to manage not only his roster, but also the storylines surrounding it. Social media magnifies everything further. Clips of Reaves' clutch shots and Smart's fiery defensive plays circulate daily, fueling debates among fans who argue passionately for their preferred player. Algorithms reward conflict, ensuring that the debate remains visible long after practices end. Players themselves, whether they admit it or not, see these discussions. Reaves may scroll through thousands of comments defending his place in the starting five. Smart may read endless takes questioning whether his offense makes him a liability. Both are human, and public perception inevitably influences private emotions. For the Lakers, fan opinion carries real weight. This is not a small market franchise that can operate quietly. Ticket sales, jersey purchases, and global branding are intertwined with how beloved individual players are. If Redick benches Reaves, the backlash could be swift. Chants from the stands, pointed questions in press conferences, and online campaigns pushing for his reinstatement. If he benches Smart, questions will arise about why the team traded for him in the first place. In Los Angeles, there is no quiet decision. Every move is amplified. The pressure of this environment shapes the players too. Reaves, adored by fans, may feel added responsibility to justify their loyalty. Smart, arriving with expectations, may feel the need to prove himself worthy of Laker purple and gold. Both will play not only for wins, but for validation. Validation from coaches, teammates, and millions of voices beyond the arena. The danger lies in letting external noise infiltrate internal focus. Great teams often insulate themselves from outside distractions. Whether this Lakers squad can do so will determine if the Smart-Reaves debate becomes fuel for growth or a wedge that divides. Ultimately, the court of public opinion is unforgiving. It thrives on drama, rewards polarization, and rarely settles for nuance. But championships are not won on Twitter or in headlines. They are won by teams that find cohesion despite the noise. Redick must convince both his players and the fan base that whatever decision he makes, it serves the greater goal of winning. If he fails to manage that narrative, the Lakers risk being consumed by external pressure before they even face the real battles of the season. The Los Angeles Lakers have always lived in two timelines. On one hand, there is the immediate urgency of competing for championships while LeBron James remains on the roster. On the other, there is the inevitable reality of life after LeBron, a future that could arrive sooner than anyone expects. The Smart-Reaves dilemma is not only about rotations today. It is a glimpse into which timeline the Lakers value more, short-term survival or long-term stability. Austin Reaves represents the long-term vision. At 26, he is entering the prime of his career, steadily improving with each season. His ability to score, create, and adapt makes him a rare commodity, a young player who can contribute now while still developing into a bigger role in the years ahead. For the Lakers, who have struggled to retain homegrown talent over the past decade, Reaves is a rare success story. Building around him as part of the franchise's post-LeBron core feels like the logical path forward. Marcus Smart, by contrast, embodies the short-term fix. At 31, his best years may already be behind him, but his defensive impact remains significant. He is not a player you build a future around. He is the piece you add when you are trying to maximize a championship window. His leadership, toughness, and playoff experience are invaluable in the here and now, but unlikely to define the Lakers' identity in 5 years. His role is more mercenary than foundational. The conflict between these timelines puts immense pressure on J.J. Redick and the Lakers' front office. If they choose to prioritize Smart in the starting lineup, they are signaling that the present, competing alongside LeBron and Luka Dončić, is all that matters. Such a choice risks alienating Reaves, who may interpret it as a lack of faith in his future with the team. That interpretation could have long-term consequences, particularly as his player option in 2026 approaches. If Reaves feels undervalued, he may seek a new home where his role is unquestioned. On the other hand, if Redick builds the starting five around Reaves, the Lakers commit to a vision beyond LeBron. They would essentially be betting that Reaves' continued growth alongside Dončić and Davis forms the backbone of the next Lakers era. Smart, in that case, becomes a valuable role player, but not a central figure. The risk here lies in the present. Would the team's defense suffer too much in critical playoff battles without Smart anchoring the perimeter from the opening tip? The Lakers' history complicates this calculus. This is a franchise defined by stars, often chasing immediate success at the expense of long-term planning. From Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant to LeBron and Anthony Davis, the organization has rarely embraced gradual rebuilds. Instead, it has thrived on bold moves and star-driven eras. In that tradition, favoring Smart may feel more consistent with the franchise's DNA. Win now, figure out tomorrow later. Yet there are reasons to rethink that pattern. LeBron's career is closer to its end than its beginning. Davis, though still dominant, has battled durability concerns. Dončić is the bridge between eras, but even he will need reliable co-stars to sustain championship aspirations once LeBron departs. Reaves, if nurtured properly, could be one of those co-stars. The Lakers cannot afford to repeat the mistakes of the past decade, when promising young players were shipped out for quick fixes that yielded only fleeting results. Financial considerations further complicate matters. Reaves is likely to command a major payday in 2026. If the Lakers envision him as a cornerstone, they must plan accordingly, ensuring cap space and role clarity to justify such an investment. Benching him now risks not only his morale, but also the financial logic of offering him a max-level contract down the line. Smart, already secured under contract, represents less of a long-term burden, but also less of a long-term solution. The true challenge for Redick and the front office is finding a balance. Perhaps Smart can be the present, while Reaves remains the future. Rotations could be designed to maximize both, allowing Smart to lead defensively in high-pressure situations while keeping Reaves entrenched as a starter and symbol of the franchise's continuity. Such a compromise, however, requires careful management of egos, expectations, and communication. In the end, the Smart-Reaves dilemma is a microcosm of the Lakers' larger identity crisis. Are they still the team chasing banners with LeBron James at the helm? Or are they quietly laying the groundwork for the next era? The answer to that question will not only shape this season's rotations, but also define the trajectory of the franchise for years to come. The Los Angeles Lakers are no strangers to crossroads. Throughout their storied history, the franchise has repeatedly faced moments where a single decision altered its trajectory. Whether it was trading for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, drafting Magic Johnson, acquiring Shaquille O'Neal, or handing the reins to Kobe Bryant, the Lakers dynasty has always been shaped by pivotal choices. Today, the Smart-Reaves dilemma may not carry the same magnitude on the surface, but its implications ripple outward in ways that could define both the present and the future. At its heart, this is not merely a debate about who should start at shooting guard. It is about what the Lakers value most in this moment. Is it Smart's defensive intensity, leadership, and experience, the qualities that might elevate a veteran-laden roster in the playoffs? Or is it Reaves's growth, chemistry, and potential, the qualities that could sustain the Lakers long? After LeBron James has stepped away, each choice tells a story about the team's priorities. J.J. Redick, tasked with navigating this storm as a first-year head coach, faces both opportunity and peril. On one side, he can establish credibility by making a decisive choice, setting a clear tone for how he intends to manage stars, veterans, and rising talents. On the other, the wrong call could fracture chemistry, unsettle the locker room, and even jeopardize the trust of the fan base. The Lakers are a franchise where coaching careers can be defined or destroyed by how well one manages personalities as much as playbooks. For Reaves, the decision cuts deeply into his sense of belonging. To start is not only a role, it is recognition of his journey, validation of the work that transformed him from undrafted rookie to key contributor. A demotion would not erase his value, but it could leave lasting scars, especially as he approaches free agency in 2026. For Smart, the challenge is different. He enters as the outsider with a championship pedigree, eager to prove that his grit translates in purple and gold. His reputation ensures respect, but respect does not guarantee fit. Meanwhile, the stars, LeBron James, Luka Dončić, and Anthony Davis, hold the true weight of the decision. Their voices, preferences, and performance will ultimately determine whether Redick's choice succeeds or fails. The system must amplify their strengths while protecting their weaknesses. In this light, neither Smart nor Reaves is the protagonist. They are essential supporting actors whose placement in the lineup must serve the greater play. Off the court, the media and fan base will continue to fuel the narrative. Every substitution, every performance, every crunch time decision will be dissected. If the Lakers stumble, critics will ask whether the wrong guard started. If they thrive, praise will flow toward whichever choice validated the gamble. The scrutiny is both a privilege and a burden of wearing the Laker jersey. Looking beyond the season, this decision becomes a symbolic marker. If Reaves remains a starter, the Lakers show faith in their future and a willingness to build around his growth. If Smart takes the role, the Lakers double down on a win-now strategy, signaling that the LeBron window still dictates every move. Neither path is inherently wrong, but each carries consequences, both in roster stability and in the story the Lakers tell about who they are becoming. Perhaps the answer does not lie in permanence. Modern basketball often demands fluidity, with lineups adjusting to matchups, opponents, and playoff intensity. Redick may ultimately embrace flexibility, starting Smart against offense-heavy guards and leaning on Reaves in games where offensive balance is critical. If managed carefully, this could transform what looks like a dilemma into a strategic advantage. But that requires communication, transparency, and trust. Three elements that are easy to preach, but difficult to sustain under pressure. In the backcourt end, the Lakers' journey this season will not be defined by one decision alone, but the Smart-Reaves dilemma crystallizes the complexity of building a contender in today's NBA. It is about balancing stars and role players, short-term gains, and long-term vision, individual pride, and collective success. Whether Redick chooses defense or continuity, toughness or growth, Smart or Reaves, the decision will echo throughout the franchise's legacy. Because in Los Angeles, choices are never just about basketball. They are about banners, history, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. And at this crossroads, the Lakers must decide not only who starts the game, but who starts the next chapter of their dynasty.